It's like a medicine, and I think that's one thing that all of y'all have is a easygoing spirit.
When Joel Osteen walks onto the Lakewood Church stage, smiling under bright lights, it's easy to forget how unusual his journey has been. For decades, he has been a symbol of positivity, a televangelist whose voice reaches millions every Sunday with the promise of your best life now. But behind the uplifting sermons and best-selling books lies a complicated story, one that spans faith, family, fortune, and fierce debate about what modern Christianity should look like. The early years, a family built on faith and vision. Joel Osteen was born on March 5, 1963, in Houston, Texas, into a family that lived and breathed faith. His father, John Osteen, had once been a Southern Baptist pastor, but left the denomination in 1959 to start his own congregation, what would eventually become Lakewood Church. With just a few hundred seats inside an old feed store, the ministry began humbly, driven by a belief in healing and miracles. Joel's mother, Dodie, was his father's anchor through every challenge, and together they built a faith community that emphasized hope and endurance. Joel grew up surrounded by this atmosphere of devotion, though he wasn't drawn to preaching himself. Instead, he watched, learned, and quietly absorbed the rhythms of ministry from behind the scenes, from cameras to the pulpit. After finishing high school, Joel attended Oral Roberts University to study media and communications, but left before graduating. He had already found his calling, not behind a pulpit, but behind a camera. In 1982, at just 19, he returned to Houston and launched Lakewood's television ministry. He produced his father's sermons, carefully editing every detail. Those early years shaped his understanding of presentation and connection. He believed that if faith was powerful, its message should be presented with excellence. His quiet dedication made Lakewood's broadcasts a success long before he ever spoke on stage. The unexpected turn. Everything changed in 1999. Joel's father urged him to preach for years, and he always refused, until January of that year. He finally agreed to deliver one sermon. 6 days later, his father passed away suddenly. That first sermon became a symbolic handoff of responsibility. The congregation, grieving and uncertain, looked to Joel for leadership. With little formal training, he stepped forward. In June 1999, he became the senior pastor of Lakewood Church. He was 36, inexperienced, and untested, but his calm optimism struck a chord. Attendance soared, building a modern-day megachurch. Under Joel's leadership, Lakewood transformed from a large church into a global brand. Within 5 years, weekly attendance tripled. His sermons, filled with stories about hope, perseverance, and self-belief, resonated with people who were tired of guilt-based preaching. In 2003, Lakewood made a bold move by leasing the former Compact Center, once home to the Houston Rockets. After extensive renovations costing nearly $100 million, the new sanctuary opened in 2005. It seated 16,000 people and quickly filled to capacity. Millions more tuned in through television and streaming platforms. The small feed store ministry his father founded had become the largest church in the United States. The business of belief. By the mid-2000s, Joel Osteen had become a household name. He stopped taking a salary from Lakewood in 2005, yet his fortune grew through book sales, speaking tours, and merchandise. His estimated net worth today ranges from $50 million to $100 million. The Lakewood budget, close to $90 million annually, funds everything from global broadcasts to staff and events. But when financial reports revealed that only a small percentage went toward direct charity or missions, critics questioned whether the balance was right. Lakewood defended its choices, noting that the church's global outreach through television and events spreads hope to millions. To many supporters, that's a different form of ministry, one that speaks to the scale of a modern digital age. Controversies and growing pains. No public figure escapes controversy, and Joel Osteen's ministry has had its share. In 2017, when Hurricane Harvey devastated Houston, Lakewood faced intense criticism for initially delaying the opening of its arena as a shelter. The church insisted that parts of the building were flooded and unsafe, but public perception hardened quickly. Images of a dry parking lot went viral, and the backlash became a turning point in how people viewed Osteen's leadership. The church later opened its doors and provided significant aid, but the damage to its reputation lingered. It was a reminder that perception can often outweigh explanation. A family at the center of faith. At the heart of Joel's story is his partnership with his wife, Victoria. They met in 1985 when Joel visited her family's jewelry store, and 2 years later they were married. Victoria grew from supportive spouse to co-pastor, launching Lakewood's women's ministry, and eventually becoming a recognized speaker and author herself. Her book, Love Your Life, became a bestseller, and she remains an influential voice within the church. Together, they built a ministry centered on optimism, with Victoria often speaking about grace and confidence alongside Joel's message of hope. The next generation. Joel and Victoria's children, Jonathan and Alexandra, have stepped into the spotlight in their own ways. Jonathan studied film and began preaching occasionally at Lakewood, while Alexandra leads worship and writes music with the church's band. They represent a new generation that blends modern culture with faith. Their presence keeps Lakewood relevant to younger audiences and signals that the Osteen legacy is likely to continue. Tragedies and challenges. Lakewood's immense size has also brought immense responsibility. In early 2024, a violent incident shook the church during a service, leaving the community traumatized. The tragedy reignited conversations about security in places of worship and how faith communities can remain open yet safe. Joel responded with his trademark composure, urging people to hold on to faith over fear. Some found comfort in his words. Others wanted deeper discussions about prevention and mental health. In moments like these, his role as both pastor and public figure has been tested most. A ministry under the microscope. The years that followed brought more scrutiny. Financial transparency, security, and theology all became topics of public debate. Even so, Lakewood's reach continued. Osteen's broadcasts air in over 100 countries, and his social media following surpasses 30 million combined. He has appeared on Oprah, Good Morning America, and Larry King Live, where his measured answers and calm smile have become both his greatest strength and his biggest criticism. People either find him too polished or perfectly composed. Faith, family, and farewell. In July 2025, the Osteen family faced a deeply personal loss when Joel's mother, Dodie, passed away at age 91. She had co-founded Lakewood alongside John and remained a spiritual matriarch for decades. Her passing marked the end of an era, but also a reminder of how the church's story began, with faith, family, and a belief in healing. Joel called her the beloved matriarch, who inspired millions. Her influence still echoes through every Lakewood service and every life she touched. The power and pressure of positivity. Through triumph and turbulence, Joel Osteen has stayed consistent in his message. He rarely wavers in tone, always smiling, always choosing optimism. That steadiness is part of what draws people to him and what frustrates his critics. To many, his voice represents the comforting side of Christianity, a faith focused on resilience and gratitude. To others, it represents a dangerous simplification of deep theology. But whatever one's view, it's impossible to deny the scale of his influence. The legacy of Lakewood. Today, Lakewood Church remains a cultural landmark and one of the most watched ministries in the world. Each week, tens of thousands attend in person and millions tune in online. For every critic questioning his theology, there's a follower who says his message helped them survive loss, depression, or financial hardship. That, ultimately, is the paradox of Joel Osteen. His ministry divides opinion, yet unites people around the promise of hope. The human behind the headlines, behind the cameras, the books, and the controversy, is still the boy who once stood quietly behind his father's pulpit, filming sermons, believing that faith could reach more people if it looked and sounded like something the world would stop to watch. Whatever one thinks of Joel Osteen, hero, motivator, or marketer, his story remains uniquely human. It is the story of a man who turned optimism into an empire, faced storms both literal and figurative, and continues to stand on a stage every Sunday, smiling, reminding millions that no matter how rough the week, there is always another chance to believe.